everybody, and welcome back to another Ableton tutorial. Lovely to have you here. Big shout out YouTube gang, big shout out Patreon gang. Full Patreon members will be able to download this entire set from today, including all the racks. The only thing is I'm going to be using Native Instruments Unicorda piano today. I'll replace that with an Ableton stock piano, but you can use whatever you like. This video is called Self-Playing Pianos, but yeah, you don't need to use a piano, of course. You're adults, you can make your own decisions. Let's take a quick listen to the layers that are going on here. So I've just got a drone that's happening in there. I've got some drums doing this. And I've got this, and this is the rack that we're going to be building today. This idea came from, I saw an interview with the Icelandic artist Olafur Arnalds, and he talked about self-playing pianos, where he could sort of play one note and a bunch of pianos on stage would go off and sort of continue playing stuff and making their own stuff up based on that input. So I thought, that's kind of interesting. What happens if I do that? So I wanted to create a situation where I can just play one note. You can see me playing a note here. And that generates a whole bunch of stuff that just continues happening. As always, I wanted to make these racks performable so that you can then sort of really change the stuff that's happening here in terms of sequences and patterns and all the rest of it. Really get a spread of notes. Really make it really quite random. And then slowly bring that back. Change the spread down and we'll get a very changing the sequences, we add some more layers and the pattern continues to evolve. So yeah, I wanted to take a look at how to build this rack. I'm going to turn that off for now. Well, let's press stop on all of these. Let's turn the drums off. Let's turn the drone off, and let's turn the self-playing pianos off. And let's start from the start. So yeah, I'm going to bring in a piano. So let's just go to Instruments, Piano. Oh, I can't spell. Upright piano. Let's use this to build our rack, and then we can change sounds afterwards. So here's upright piano. Let's make sure input is enabled here. So yep, I'm just playing notes on the push. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is create an upper voice just for this. So what I'm going to do is bring in a chord effect, MIDI effect, chord. Where's it gone? Chord. There we go. And so I'm just going to use one extra voice on this, and I'm going to, to begin with, I'm going to make it a 16th, 15th, or a 16th, doesn't really matter right now. So that's an octave and a third. So then already we're creating this harmony just from playing one note. Let's bring a scale device in and put that in here. And let's go with C minor. I was doing that intro in C minor, so let's go with C minor as well. So now all of the extra notes that are being generated are within that key of C minor. That's really nice. This 100% here allows us to change, we'll control the velocity and control the chance. So if I can put all the chants that we know what chance does. Let's put chance all the way up. And velocity scales the weighting. So 100% means it's going to be the same velocity as the incoming note. I can make that significantly louder or significantly quieter. For now, I'm going to leave that like that. But what I'm actually going to do is group that. And I'm going to put these two things on a macro already. So I'm going to right click, map to macro 1. And I'm going to change the range only to maximum 2 octaves. And I don't ever want it to go below. So that's that. And I'm going to map this to macro 2 and call that weighting. Cool. That's all the macros that we're going to do for that right now. Right, I'm going to group that, select everything, Command G, and turn that into its own rack. Now, down here, so that's going to be my main my main voice. Now in here, I'm going to bring in another piano instruments. Piano. There we go. Let's bring the upright piano in again. I'm going to turn that one off for now, and I'm going to turn this on. So the way I'm going to generate all of those notes is using a combination of arpeggiators and chord devices. So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to create a bunch of different notes for this to play. So I'm going to bring in the chord device first. So I'm going to go in MIDI effects, chord, and we're going to put that in here. And I'm just going to put this at 2 and 3 and 4, and I'm going to bring in an arpeggiator after that. So with this arpeggiator style and this set to 2, 3, 4, so we've got the incoming note and then some additional notes going up. So if I just press a note, fun. Let's bring a scale device in here so we can keep that everything in key. Yeah, let's go for C minor again. So we can hear that some of the notes are now being triggering the same thing. So let's maybe make that 4 and let's make this 7. Let's make that 5. There we go. Nice. So this is how we're going to generate the notes in our sequence. Let's create a situation here where this can be controlled. Of course, let's bring in an expression control in here. And let's say that, let's set this to random, 100% logarithmic, and I'm going to map that to shift 1 over here. Don't want it to go up to 50, so let's bring that down to sort of 25. I'm going to do the same thing here, random, logarithmic. Let's bring this down to, and I'm going to map that to here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to set this to random. I'm going to change that to 100%. Okay, click that there. We're going to change this to 25. And I'm going to map that to here. So now each time this receives a new MIDI note, it's generating random values. And that's going to really spread those notes out. Super nice. Right. I'm going to group this. And I'm going to, oh, hang on. No, I want to group more than that. I want to group these things. So let's group that. Let's already map some of this stuff to randoms. What I'm also going to do, this hold button here is going to give me a latch effect. So I'm just going to map that to macro 1. What that means is that at the moment the notes stop when I let go. This, I let go. And it keeps playing the notes. That's super nice. Let's bring in a pitch device in here. So this is now going to let me start the melody on a different note from the incoming note. So let's map that to macro 2. And again, let's constrain that range to be from 0 to 24. So now the incoming note is an octave above the note that I'm actually pressing on the keyboard. That's really nice. If I bring that first voice back in. So we get a nice spread of notes. Right, let's come back to our second one. Right, yep, thank you. Right, that's a couple of things mapped. Let's be able to control the spread of these notes, the spread of this random. So I'm going to do that using this max value here. I'm going to right click, map to macro 3, and I'm going to do that for all of these 3. Map to max. Map to max. Let's rename that note spread. So with this all the way down, we're again just getting those 4 notes. And the more I open this up, you know what? I reckon these can go a bit higher. Let's put them back to 50. I don't mind if it goes sort of way high. Nice. Okay. That's enough mapping for now. Now I want to create a situation where let's bring this bring this note spread back down. One thing we know about music is it's nice to have repetition. Repetition legitimizes, and repetition that evolves continues to legitimize things. So let's create a situation where I can cycle through, like I can take this sequence and then perhaps pitch it up or pitch it down each time it repeats. So let's close these a little bit for now. So I'm going to do that in here, and I'm going to bring in a pitch device. And I'm going to turn that into its own rack, Command G. I'm going to open up this, and I'm going to duplicate that. Let's do 3 times. 3 times. I'm going to open up the macros here. I'm going to map the first one to macro 1. No, we don't need that one. We just want a regular one there. So I'm going to delete that. Let's map U to macro 1. Map U to macro 2. And let's map U to macro 3. Let's open up the chain controls here. Let's spread these ranges equally. Distribute ranges equally. And I'm going to map the chain selector to macro 5. So now I can move through. Oh, let's constrain the range of that chain selector. It only needs to go up to 3. So now I haven't changed any of these pitches. So now if I move these around, the -9, we're going to really hear the difference here. So it's going to play the sequence, but it's also now going to pitch shift it. So it's now shifted down 9 semitones. Really nice. Let's constrain the ranges on these pitches again, and let's go from -12 to +24. Let's do that on all. And I want to be able to randomize these, but not each time we're receiving a MIDI note after the arpeggiator. I want to randomize them in here. Each time I trigger one note on here. So I could probably use this expression control. No, I'm going to bring in a new one. Let's name this. So we know what's going on. Let's bring in another expression control in here. Let's name this one sequence notes. And again, I'm going to go random. Can turn it to 100%. We're going to go bipolar, and I'm going to map that to here. I'm going to do the same here. Random. 100%. Did I change you to linear? No, linear. We're going to 50% bipolar, and we're going to map you to here. And let's put all of these back at their starting points, and random. 100% here, bipolar, and map you to here. So now each time I press this, we're getting a new random value on each of those. Okay, so how to make it cycle through those? Well, I'm going to create in here. In here, I'm going to create another arpeggiator that I'm going to use to cycle through. But I'm not going to use the arpeggiator to generate any notes. I'm just going to use that arpeggiator to sort of generate a MIDI trigger, which I'm then going to use to incrementally move through these. So I'm going to bring that arpeggiator in. Let's put that in here. I'm going to group it. I'm going to open up these things here. I'm actually going to turn that channel off and turn this one back on. So that's going to let the original signal go through and do all of this stuff. This arpeggiator I'm only going to use to trigger a expression control, which I'm going to make sure I drag in right after that. I'm going to change this to incremental, and steps is going to be 4. I'm going to make sure that's set to linear, that's set to 100%, and I'm going to map that to the chain selector here. So now each time this receives a MIDI note, it's going to step through this chain selector. And we can see that happening. And that's happening at the same rate as this as this sequence is being generated. So if I change this to 16th notes though, and I change this to quarter notes, what we're now going to hear is a 4-note sequence that's now then going to be changed in pitch according to these. Which is a really nice effect. It allows us to really, permutate and change and evolve these sequences. So let's map a couple of things there. I'm going to map. This is my melody. So I'm going to map that rate. Let's map that to macro 5. Actually, let's open up some more of these for now. Macro 5. Melody rate, and now and I'm going to constrain that range, so I don't ever want that's far too fast. Let's make it maximum 30 seconds, and the slowest melody, let's set it to a quarter. Now let's map this arpeggiator. This is generating the rate of the cycling through those pitches that we just generated, so I'm going to map that to macro 6, and I'm going to make that. Where's that gone? Oh, it's in a MIDI rack here, and now I need to map that to macro 6 over here. And now let's change this. So the fastest I ever wanted to cycle through those changes in changing the sequence is a quarter note. That will do. Okay, so nice. And now this is very nice. Okay, number of sequences. Let's map that somehow. So that's going to be the number of steps here in the increment. I'm going to right click. Let's map that to macro 5, and then let's make sure I constrain that range to just go from 1 to 4. And now let's map that to macro 4 over there. Lovely. Okay, now let's, what's going on here? Don't need that open anymore. Right, let's bring in some ability to humanize some stuff. So I'm going to, I've made a rack to do this, but let's build it. So this is going to go in here, and I'm going to humanize both the timing and the velocity, and be able to control both of those. So first thing, to do the timing, we're going to bring in a note length. No, not a note length. A note echo. And I'm going to set this to not synced, to be timed. Going to turn that all the way down. Going to make sure the input is muted and the feedback is all the way down. So what this is now going to do is just create a delay in between the note being triggered and it coming out of this note echo. And we're going to bring in another expression control in here so that each time this receives an input, it's going to generate a random value. Of course, we're going to set that to random. And of course, we're going to put that 100% logarithmic, unipolar, 100%. And we're going to map that to there. So now each time it receives a value. Yeah, we're totally getting these random flurries of notes. Oh, no, we've got the latch stopped. Okay, so now I'm going to group these. Command G. And let's map this maximum value to macro 1. So when that's all the way down. Yeah, lovely. So that's giving us a control over the humanness of the timing. Let's map that to macro 7. In this rack as well. We're now going to bring in a sort of random velocity situation. So I'm going to bring in a velocity plugin here. This already has a random. So I want a situation where this one macro control is going to be making it go to this. Oop. to this. Okay, so let's do that. So first of all, map you to macro 2, and the range is, yes, going to be 0 to 127. Output high, let's map that to the same, and I want that to go from, when it's all the way down, I want that to be 100. Ooh, and that's all the way down. I want that to be 127, and this to be 64. Do the same thing with output low, map that to here, and I want that to be, when it's all, and this to 64. Does that do now what I want it to do? No, what's happened? Output high, you should be at 64 when it's all the way up. Output high should be at 64. What's this then? Output low, curve 1. Oh, that should be that. Yes. Don't know what happened there. Does that now do what I want it to do? No. Output high, 127 to 64. Yes. Okay, so that's now a random velocity. And I'm going to map that to macro 8 over there. So this randomizes the velocity. Right. Let's put in a note length device in here so I can make the notes super long or super short. Let's bring this in here and map that to macro 9. Map that to the wrong macro there. No, I didn't. I put the note length in the wrong place. I'm going to bring that into this rack here. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to map that to macro 9. Yeah, so now we can get this sort of lovely super nice. Okay, just one more thing to map here. Let's come back into this arpeggiator. Is this, where's my, this arpeggiator is the one that I want. No. In here? No, where have I generated the notes? In here. No, that's the sequence arpeggiator. Oh, melody. I renamed it. Let's map this to macro 10 so that we can sort of change the style of the arpeggiation. What's going on there? We should have normal timing. Yeah, this is the wrong way around. 0 and 127, please. Yeah, there we go. Okay, note spread. Sequence steps. And now we can... Really nice. Let's turn this up. That's about all the macros we need for that. Right, let's add a sub underneath, because it's also nice that a sub just sort of a sub supports all of this. How does that sound together with the main one now? Right, let's bring a sub in. Instruments operator. Turn these off so we can just quickly Dial it in. Yeah, we're going to need a pitch device in there to shift that down. Pitch, wherever you go, MIDI effects, pitch. Okay, and let's bring a note length in here so that we can actually just, I think it's going to be nice to control the, yeah. Let's give it some release. So now, no matter how long I hold the key for, it's giving us that same sub. That's going to be nice to be able to control somehow. Let's group that. And let's just add that to a macro. And let's now shut all of that. Oh, we need to bring in a scale device for the operator as well. Scale, let's bring you in here. Make sure you're set to the same. I could, of course, use the scale awareness on these scale devices and set it to the whole project. I don't know why I did it individually. Maybe it'd be better to do it as the whole project. Probably would. But yeah, this is the rack. Let's see how it sounds with some drums and with... Oh, turn everything else back on. Yeah, so that's the rack. It sounds a little bit different from the one I did in the intro. That's mainly just because of the piano sound. Today was not so much about sound design. Today was more about, exploring this idea of self-playing pianos. Hope you got something from this. Lovely to have you here. Patreon members can download this entire rack, of course, this entire set. Big shout out to you all. See you next time.